Will Lester's memorial event at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. is a tribute to his significant contributions to journalism. Lester, a respected journalist known for his insightful reporting and dedication to the profession, left a lasting impact on the industry and his colleagues. The memorial honored his legacy, bringing together friends, family, and colleagues to celebrate his life and work. For more details, follow me.
With a smile and every person with an open heart. Will was the kind of guy every newsroom needs to have. An exceptional editor whose gentle manner and quiet excellence made him stand out. He never sought the spotlight, but he was quick to heap praise on those whose stories attracted it. It's fitting we're gathered tonight at the National Press Club, where Will's legacy lives on in our Journalism Awards program. He gave his heart and soul to this institution. He mentored dozens of young journalists over the years, and Will first joined the club in 1998. He then took on the momentous task of running our National Journalism Awards program in 2011 and stuck with it for more than a decade. He's also one of the select few people to win the National Press Club's highest volunteer honor, the Bernie Krogh Award. We hope tonight you'll share the warmth of your memories and stories that keep Will's spirit alive. Please feel free to speak from your heart. Tell us about the moments that made Will so special to each of you. Thank you again for coming together. It's a tribute to Will that so many of you are here tonight to honor his memory. As we remember him, let's celebrate the wonderful moments he gave us, the laughter we shared, and the incredible impact he made on our lives. I'll turn it over now to Anna Johnson, AP's Washington Bureau Chief.
Hi everyone. First I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming this evening, and also thank you to the National Press Club for hosting this event. I think Will would really agree that this is a wonderful thing, and I'm really happy that we're all here to be here together this evening. I didn't know Will all that long. I'm probably one of the newest people in this room that's moved to Washington. Only been here about 2 years. But I can say from the moment I walked in, joined the AP Washington Bureau and walked into our newsroom for the first time in April of 2022, Will was always just an incredible light. He always said, "Hi, how you doing? How's it going?" Always had a kind word to say, always had a friendly thing to say, always remarked about everyone's stories. As I look in this room and see so many of the reporters here this evening, he always had, frequently, we would always be there a little bit, he worked later and I would be there a little bit later. And he'd always say, "Hey, have you seen that story that Colleen wrote? Have you seen that story that Fatima wrote? Like, it's really good." And I'm like, "Yeah, that was a really great story today." Or if we had a big scoop or we got a big break in something, he'd always remark about it and always have so many compliments for all of the journalists at the Associated Press. And it's just, to me, that, is why we love newsrooms. It's why we miss Will so much. And I can tell you, since coming back to our newsroom a couple of months ago after we were gone for renovation, his presence is definitely missed. And so, I just cherish those things. It's what makes being a journalist and working in a newsroom and working at the AP just a wonderful, wonderful place. It's people like Will. So thank you all for joining. Thank you for coming this evening. And I'm going to turn it over to Carol Feldman.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Will would be, so many people went out of their way for me. It's not necessary. He was the humblest, the most, kind person. When we heard that he died, and Meg, his colleague in South Carolina, volunteered to write the obit, we gather as staff. Give us some memories. Tell us about Will. And the thing we heard most often was what a kind, nice person he was. He cared so much, not only for the craft of journalism and for making sure every single story that he touched really sang, had no accuracy issues, represented the best of AP. But he would, even as he suffered his own health issues later in his life, he would say, "How are you?" He would, say to me, "How are the grandkids?" He was the best of the colleagues that you could hope for just because of that kindness. I hope you all got a chance to read the wonderful obit that Meg wrote, but I just want to read one short paragraph from it, because I think it really gets to the point that we all wanted to make in talking to him. Fellow AP employees held Lester's good nature in equal measure of esteem with his dedication to covering the news. Executive editor Julie Pace, who previously served as Washington bureau chief, said Lester represented the best of AP, calling him a dedicated editor who cared deeply about his craft, as well as an incredibly kind person who treated everyone with respect and decency. I don't think anyone could have really captured Will better. I would like to call on some of his colleagues and some of his people who knew him best to talk about Will and the kind of person, the kind of journalist that he was. Meg, would you like to talk about Will's early career in South Carolina?
Sure. For those of y'all whom I don't know, I'm Meg Kennard. I report to DC, but I live in South Carolina, where Will experienced a chunk of his journalism career. And I'll tell you really quick that the way I got to know Will was because of the Guild, which is a special organization for so many of us. I was on the Representative Assembly. I was coming through to DC 20 years ago when I joined our company. I was scared to death because I didn't know anybody outside of my teeny tiny little bureau in South Carolina. But as Carol noted, and many others will, I'm sure, Will was that friendly person who was like, hey, come sit by me. Sure, okay, I'm completely a fish out of water here. As soon as he figured out I was from South Carolina, he's like, you gotta tell me all the good gossip, what's going on in that crazy state. And I love that. We had that instant connection, but also Will loved South Carolina. Even though he'd been here in DC and other places for a long time, he was always reaching out to me and saying, like, what is going on with these politicians down there? Can't you get a hold of them? Come on, Meg. And when I started working for the DC Bureau, I loved it when I had a story that was really late, because that meant that I got to work with Will. And not only did that work well for me as a journalist, because he knew South Carolina so well, but he was just such a great guy to work with. I will tell you a funny anecdote that I discovered when I was working on the obit that I was really honored to be able to do. Any of y'all who've done that, especially for a colleague, know how hard it is, but also how it gives you something good inside, because you want to do a really, really good job. And I don't know if I did, but I certainly tried. But I interviewed a bunch of colleagues from within the AP and also some other journalism outlets where Will had worked in South Carolina. But Bruce Smith, whom some of y'all might remember as a decades-long AP correspondent based in Charleston, South Carolina, the job all of us would love to have someday. I asked Bruce, I'm like, look, you knew Will when he was part of the State House Press Corps in Columbia. What was it like to work with him during that period? And Bruce related to me an anecdote where they were in the State House. Anybody who's worked in a State House knows how contentious it can get, particularly between reporters and these lawmakers, and sometimes things get heated. And Will was a nice guy. We've heard a lot about that. We're gonna hear more. He was a gentle soul on the DC desk. But this day in the State House, Will got into a fight with a lawmaker who accused him of not getting the facts right. And Will was like, okay, Senator, but I've got this all on tape. I've been recording you this entire time. And the guy yells back at Will, well, your tape, it lies. And Will's like, no, it doesn't. And Bruce Smith told me this story, and I was like, wow, that's a side of Will Lester that I didn't personally know or professionally, but it kind of made sense when I considered it, that yes, we knew him as kind of this gentle spirit and soul who made our copy sing, especially late at night when we're tired handing it in. But he had a lot of fire in there too, and that's a journalistic spirit that I'm really proud to be associated with. So again, thank you all for entrusting me to write his obit. I hope I did you proud, and God bless Will Lester. He was a great guy. Thank you.
So every year, every summer, one thing that the entire Washington Bureau looked forward to was Will's amazing bashes at the Chesapeake Bay. He would have food, he would have drinks, you know, some people brought their own stuff, people brought kids, but it was just such a wonderful time to celebrate the people we all worked with. Marilyn Thompson, you know, threw those bashes with him, and, you know, forever, I'll never forget, you know, my son, who had just turned 16, drove on the Beltway to one of these bay parties, and I remember saying, am I gonna get to the party? Am I gonna get to the party? Will they have a drink ready for me? And there was Will welcoming us when we got there. You know, my nerves were shattered, but I quickly put at ease by his great hospitality. Marilyn, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Will would be so proud to see this turnout. It's just really nice. Carol asked me to talk a little about the party, which, if you may remember, was called Day on the Bay. And it was the social highlight of Will's life every year, I know that. It started out kind of small. Will and I had known one another since the South Carolina days at the Columbia Record, where we both worked. And we both ended up living out on the Chesapeake Bay. I had a weekend house, and Will just moved there full time because it was so pretty. But we wanted to have this little barbecue for friends kind of party, and he had this great community center. So we would book it and have this little party. But the party began growing and growing and getting a little out of control. We served barbecue. We had catered barbecue from one of the pig places down there. We had a band. I worked at the Washington Post, and there was a guy who played bass guitar and had his own band, and we hired them. And Will loved this party so much, he kept adding, and there were all these add-ons. You know, Will would be like, hey, you know, this year, let's do a moon bounce. And I'd be like, okay, we'll do a moon bounce. Price of the party kept going up and up and up, and it was a staggering cost by the end. But Will put his heart and soul into this social event, and he loved having his AP colleagues come out there. I remember on the weekend, as the thing was approaching, Will would get in his car and drive around and put up the sign, the directional signs, all along 468, the Maryland highway that led to Shady Side. And he loved that party. And when I would ask him about it, he would say, you know, I really love the people I work with, and I almost never get a chance to kind of hang out with them. And that's what the party became for Will. We did it for many years. Gosh, I don't even count. By the end, it was beginning to cut quite deeply into the old checking account. We did have moon bounce. We had other kiddie features. Kids became a huge part of the party. And we finally ended it because, you know, Will was having his health problems. I was having my own health problems. But Carol and others have mentioned this, the selfless quality that Will showed, and especially I think to his colleagues at the AP. I don't know that he shared this with many of you, but he did with me. Many a holiday would come along, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's Eve, and you know, you might call Will and say, hey, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? Or you want to come by on New Year's Eve? We're going to have some people over. And Will would always say, I'm working. And we all know Will was a workaholic. I mean, he loved the news. But I would say, like, Will, why are you always the one who's working on the holidays? You know, it's amazing, like every holiday, there you are. And Will said, and he meant it, I volunteer to work because other people have children, small children, and I want them to be able to be with their families. And that was just the kind of guy he was. That's all I'm gonna say, because I'm getting a little emotional. But thank you all, thanks for coming to our party, and hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.